Assalamualaikum. How y'all left her?
How you doing? Good. She coming. She moved too soon. Come sit down. It's long.
Keep that shit.
Finally made it down here.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Shake it. How you doing, Shake? Assalamualaikum, Shake. When your dad comes to Canada, I'm the brother that picks him up. Your dad comes to Canada, I'm the brother that picks him up.
They coming now.
You're not even paying attention to the phone. You don't want to hold it?
I'm waiting.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول Allah, Hayyul Salam, Hayyul Salam, Hayyul Salam, Hayyul Salam, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, the legislation of Islam is a system that represents justice and equality for all, regardless of race, religion, color, or creed, in every aspect of the human existence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes His book as a legislation of justice, as He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that indeed this Quran يهدي للتي هي أقوم, it guides to that which is fair, upright, just, and it gives glad tidings to those who believe and do righteous deeds, and that for them is a huge reward. Sometimes as human beings, we often overestimate ourselves, subjecting our physical, psychological, and moral well-being to various levels of oppression and injustice, believing that we know what is best for ourselves when in fact we don't. And it is for this very reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the human being as the most ignorant and the most unjust of His creatures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَن يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. That indeed we offered the trust of free will to the heavens, the earth, and the mountains, and they all refused. وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ, and the human being took on that responsibility. إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. He was ignorant and oppressive. Ignorant and oppressive. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, the great scholar in the religion of Islam, he said, Al-insan khuliqa fil asli dhaluman jahula, that the human being is created in his original nature as ignorant and oppressive. He said, وَلَا يَنْفَقُّ عَنِ الْجَهْلِ وَالظُّلْمِ إِلَّا بِأَنْ يُعَلِّمَهُ اللَّهُ مَا يَنْفَعُهُ. He said, and he cannot remove himself from these two places or these two boxes of ignorance and oppression unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches him what will be beneficial for him, وَيُلْهِمَهُ رُشْدَهُ, and He gives him divine inspiration that by which he can navigate through the world. فَمَنْ أَرَادَ بِهِ خَيْرًا عَلَّمَهُ مَا يَنْفَعُهُ فَخَرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الْجَهْلِ. He says, so if Allah wants to do good for His servant, then He teaches him that which will benefit him, and he is able to remove himself from the first box of ignorance. He said, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do further good for him, وَانْفَعَهُ بِمَا عَلَّمَهُ فَخَرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الظُّلْمِ. He said, if Allah wants to further do good for His servant, He benefits him with what He has taught him, and therefore he removes himself from the second box of ignorance. He said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يُرِدْ بِهِ خَيْرًا أَبْقَاهُ عَلَى أَصْلِهِ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. He said, and for the servant that Allah does not want good for, He leaves him in his original state ignorant and oppressive. Ignorant and oppressive. Thus the gauge by which we determine what is healthy or unhealthy, what is good or bad, beneficial or detrimental, is the justice found in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For had the truth been in accordance with the desires of man, everything in the heavens and the earth would have been corrupted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَوْ اتَّبَعَ الْحَقُّ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ لَفَسَدَ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ. That if the truth had been in accordance with the desires, the whims of man, everything in the heavens and the earth would have been corrupted. Our perception, brothers and sisters, of reality is flawed. And sometimes because it is cognitively biased, we have a cognitive bias as it relates to reality. We want reality to be in sync and aligned with the way that we see the world, when in fact reality is reality, the way that it is. We want to see it the way that we want to see it, but the fact of the matter is that reality is as it is. And as Ibn Hazm, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, أفضل ما نفع الله أو ما أنفع الله على عبد أو نعمة الله على العبد أن يتبعه على العدل وحبه وعلى الحق وإيثاره. He said that the greatest blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give to the human being, Ibn Hazm, he said that the greatest blessing that Allah could give to a human being is to make him organically love the truth and give truth precedence over everything else. That is the greatest blessing, that a person loves the truth and he gives precedence to the truth over everything else, over his desires, over the people he loves, over the agenda, right? Over everything. As Ibn Qayyim, he said, Shaykhuna ahabbu ilayna wal haqqa ahabbu ilayna minhu. He said, my Shaykh, Ibn Taymiyyah, is dear to me, beloved to me, but I love the truth more than I love him. I love the truth more than I love him. And in our day and time, we have get caught up in personality worship, where we will give precedence to the personality that is in front of us over the truth that we know. The greatest blessing that Allah can give to a servant, and yutbi'uhu, that He makes him organically love the truth and give precedence to it over everything else. So we have to lay this foundation first in order for us to understand the current climate of social injustice that is becoming very commonplace in the world that we live in. And this is as a result of the absence of God consciousness and the moral decline in this society that we live in. Boundaries of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are no longer. These lines have been blurred as it relates to our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what can you expect from an individual who has no relationship with God? What can you expect from him? What can you expect from a person who has no relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As the scholars say, they have a very famous statement, La kufr, la dam ba'd al-kufr. After a person disbelieves, you can expect anything from them. La dam ba'd al-kufr. After a person leaves Islam, after a person decides to disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can expect anything from them. And the greatest form of injustice that is perpetrated in the world today, which we almost never talk about, is the injustice done against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the form of shirk, in the form of ingratitude, in the form of disbelief. We talk about all types of social injustice, but we never talk about the injustice that is done to God, that is done to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran a piece of advice that Luqman, the righteous, gave to his son. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشَّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. He said, oh my son, do not associate partners with Allah. Indeed, shirk is the greatest form of injustice. إِنَّ الشَّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. That shirk is the greatest form of injustice. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, مَا أَحَدٌ أَصْبِرُ عَلَى أَذَى سَمِعَهُ مِنَ اللَّهِ جَلَّ وَعَلَى يَدَّعُونَ لَهُ الْوَلَدِ ثُمَّ يُعَافِيَهُمْ وَيَرْزُقُهُمْ رَوَاهُ الْبُخَارِ. The Prophet ﷺ said that there is none more patient than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the harm that He hears from His servants. They claim that He has a son, they attribute all types of things to Him, yet He still gives them good health and He still provides for them. SubhanAllah. Another injustice that is done to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to reject His existence. And there are some who created from the most despicable fluid known to man, and he exits the womb of his or her mother only knowing nothing, only to get to a point in their lives where they begin to debate about the very existence of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَوَلَمْ يَرَى الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. He said, doesn't the human being see that we created him from a most despicable fluid, and then he grows to the point where he begins to debate about the very existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This substance get on your hands, on your clothes, it's disgusting. And this is where you come from. And yet you grow to a point where now you begin to use your logic and your intellect to now deny the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what can you expect from someone who dismisses the existence of his creator? Be he a husband, be he an employer, be he a father, be he your Muslim brother or sister in Islam. It was mentioned in the Hadith al-Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "A'ajaban laka ibn Adam." How amazing of a creature are you, O child of Adam. "Ajaban laka ibn Adam." How amazing of a creature are you, O child of Adam. "Khalaqtuka wa ta'budu ghayri." I created you, yet you turn around and worship other than me. وَرَزَقْتُكَ وَتَشْكُرُ سِوَايَ. And I provide for you, yet you turn around and thank someone else. He said, وَأَتَحَبَّبْ إِلَيْكَ بِالنِّعَمْ وَأَنَا غَنِيٌّ عَنْكَ. I become more dear to you by the blessings that I give you while I'm not in need of you. وَتَتَبَغَّضْ إِلَيَّ بِالْمَعَاصِي وَأَنْتَ فَقِيرٌ إِلَيَّ. He said, but yet you are more despicable to me or more dislikable to me because of the sins you commit while you need me. SubhanAllah. That I become more beloved to you because of the blessings that I give you while I don't need you. وَأَنَا غَنِيٌّ عَنْكَ. I don't need you. People say, well, when God sends me, Allah sends me back to jail, He sends me back to the place where I can remember Him most. You think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs you? When I go back to jail, that's where Allah sends me because that's where I remember Him the most. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in need of your worship, of your remembrance. In Baytul Ma'mur, the Prophet ﷺ told us there's 70,000 angels. There's not a handspan of space, this much of space in Baytul Ma'mur, except that there's an angel prostrating, an angel in Qiyam, an angel in Jalsa, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu azim, Allah is not in need of you. If you never worshiped Allah again, He is not in need of your ibadah. Allah created you to worship Him for you, not for Him. To give you an opportunity to see if you deserve or you are worthy of the life that He gave you. Not for Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not need your worship. He said, وَأَتَحَبَّبْ إِلَيْكِ بِالنِّعْمَةِ. That I become more dear to you because of the blessings that I give you. وَأَنَا غَنِيٌّ عَنْكَ. I'm not in need of you. وَتَتَبَغَّضْ إِلَيَّ بِالْمَعَاصِي وَأَنْتَ فَقِيرٌ إِلَيَّ. And yet you become more dislikable to me because of the sins that you commit while you need me more than anything. Subhanallah al-Azim. He said, خَيْرِي إِلَيْكَ نَازِلْ وَشَرْكُكَ إِلَيَّ صَاعِدْ. He said, the good that is with me is constantly descending upon you, while the partners that you associate with me, the shirk that you commit, is constantly ascending to me. The sins that we commit are constantly ascending to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while the good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for us is constantly descending upon us. And this is why Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala in his famous khutbah, he said, Allahumma la tamna'ana khayra ma indik bi sharri ma indina. He said, oh Allah, do not prevent us, do not deny us the good that you have because of the evil that we have, the sins that we commit. Don't deny us the good that you have because of the bad that we have. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to recognize His magnificent right over us. Some of us tend to think that we are doing Islam a favor, that we are doing Muslims a favor. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Hujurat, talking to the Bedouin Arabs who used to come from the Badia, come from the desert, and claim that they were Muslim, and then act as if they were doing the Prophet ﷺ and the believers in Medina a favor. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. They consider their Islam as a favor to you. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends the ayah by saying that Islam is a blessing for you, not for anyone else. This is the blessing that Allah conferred to you. Your acceptance of Islam or your practice of Islam is not a blessing to anyone but you. Stop with this narcissistic, this God complex that we have, believing that because I'm Muslim, because I'm here, I've arrived, that now the show can go on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of you, and He can replace any one of us, just like most of the time He used us to replace somebody else. Somebody who took Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ni'mah for granted, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala slowly guided them out of Islam and then replaced them with you. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بما جاء فيه من الآيات والذكر الحكيم أقول ما تسمعون أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إقرارا به وتوحيدا وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سراجا منيرا. أما بعد، قال عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه: لا سلطان إلا بالرجال ولا رجال إلا بمال ولا مال إلا بإمارة ولا إمارة إلا بالعدل. Umar radiallahu anhu, in a very profound statement, he said, لا سلطان إلا بالرجال, that there can be no true authority except with real men. Real men, not cowards. Real men, بالرجال. He said, ولا رجال إلا بمال, and a man cannot be a man except with money. Status. Look at all of the acts of worship in Islam that require money. So much so that some of the Sahaba were afraid that the wealthy from amongst them were going to make off with all of the good deeds. They went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, ذهب الدثور بالأجور. Ya Rasulullah, the rich, the wealthy from amongst us have made off with all of the good deeds. يصلون كما نصلي ويصومون كما نصوم ويتصدقون بفضول أموالهم. The rich, the wealthy have made off with all of the good deeds, O Messenger of Allah. They pray just like we pray. They fast just like we fast. But they have money and they give sadaqah from their money, and we don't have money. And the Prophet ﷺ said to them, broadening the scope of charity in Islam beyond money. He said, didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the wherewithal to give sadaqah? He said, every saying alhamdulillah is a sadaqah. Every saying subhanallah is a sadaqah. Al-ibtisam fi wajh akhika sadaqah. To smile in the face of your brother is a sadaqah. Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the wherewithal to give charity? Broadened the concept of charity in Islam beyond the scope of wealth. Even to the point where he mentioned at the end of the hadith, for a man to have halal relations with his wife is a sadaqah. The Sahaba were amazed. They said, "O Messenger of Allah, are you saying that if a man goes to his wife and satisfies his desires, he gets a reward for that?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't you see that if he put it in a place that was haram, فَعَلَيْهِ وِزْرٌ, that he would be sinful?" He said, then if he puts it in a place that is permissible for him, then he gets an ajr, he gets a reward. The Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, "La sultan illa birijal." There can be no authority except with real men. وَلَا رِجَالٍ إِلَّا بِمَالٍ, and there can be no real men except with wealth. Our religion does not advocate poverty. I don't know why that we think that it's okay in our communities, in the African American Muslim communities, that it is okay for us to advocate poverty. That's not our religion. Pillars of Islam require money. Zakat requires money. Hajj requires money. The average Hajj ticket today is $7,000. Money. So these are pillars of our religion that require economic stability. Tell me the last time you heard a lecture or a conference on economics. Economic stability. Tell me the last time you heard a khutbah or a lecture on zakat. Many of us have been Muslim years and don't even know the nisab of zakat today. And many of us, because we don't know, we actually qualify for zakat and have not paid it. Brothers and sisters, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me change that around. Brothers and sisters, love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to change the language. Language and culture are intertwined with one another. And perhaps one of the reasons why our children keep running away from this religion is because we advocate Islam as if it's punitive, as opposed to concentrating on the compassion and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instead of telling your children, fear Allah, tell your children, love Allah. Do it because you love Allah. Fear doesn't motivate anybody to do anything with sincerity. You do it out of fear. Many of us are motivated by fear, not by love and compassion. Love and compassion has a quality of sincerity, of ikhlas attached to it, while fear has a quality of hypocrisy attached to it. Because as long as the person is around, we'll do it. The moment the person goes away, we don't do it. Love, compassion change the language in our communities. Not fear Allah, love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do it for your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he continued, he said, وَلَا مَالْ إِلَّا بِإِمَارَةٍ. And there can be no wealth except with a system that governs that wealth, to make sure that it is distributed correctly, to make sure that it is managed correctly. He said, وَلَا إِمَارَةٍ إِلَّا بِالْعَدْلِ. And there can be no system except with justice. No system except with justice. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ were men unlike we will ever see again in our lifetime. We will never see men who love this religion like that again. We will never see that again. And what we see taking place around the world of the many forms of injustice and oppression is a reflection of how distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a whole, as a human body, as a human race we have become. The closer we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more fair and the more justice you will see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. He said, do not let your hatred of a people cause you to be unfair towards them. Don't let your hatred of a person cause you to be unfair towards them, to be unjust towards them. There are people in our midst who believe, because you don't practice Islam according to my standards, I don't even see you as a Muslim. You are not even deserving of the very basics of the religion, like salam, like a smile, the very basics of Islam. You are not deserving of it because you don't meet my expectations of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muslim man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. That the Muslim, he didn't say the believer. He said the Muslim, the bare minimum. The Muslim is one who other Muslims are free from their tongue and their hands. I should never have to worry about the tongue of another Muslim. I should never have to worry about the hands of another Muslim. But here we are today, totally disregard the elementary teachings of Islam, yet we're reaching for some of the more, greater matters of the religion, minor in the major and majoring in the minor. That is us all day long. The very basics of Islam, you can't even give to your brother Muslim. But yet you want to teach some of these greater matters of the religion. Man, have several seats. You have got to be kidding me, man. Start with the basics of Islam. Start with learning how to give Muslims the greeting of salam, invoking the peace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on your brother and your sister, Muslim. That is the very basic teachings of the religion. So the closer that we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the closer that we are to Allah, the more justice and equality will manifest in our ranks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't let your hatred of the people cause you to be unjust towards them. اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. Be just, be fair, it is closer to piety. The closer you are to piety and righteousness, the closer you are to fairness and justice. The closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more that people can expect from you justice and fairness. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, a very profound statement. He said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُقِيمُ دَوْلَةً الْعَادِلَةَ وَإِنْ كَانَتْ كَافِرَةً. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will establish a country that is a country full of non-Muslim disbelievers if it is founded upon justice. وَلَا يُقِيمُ الظَّالِمَ وَإِنْ كَانَتْ مُسْلِمَةً. He said, and Allah will not establish a country, even if it is Muslim, if it is founded upon oppression. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will establish a non-Muslim society if that society is founded upon the principle of justice and fairness and equality. And Allah will not establish a society, even if they're Muslim, if it is not founded upon justice and equality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates oppression, which is why the madloom, the oppressed, they have such a virtue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said there are 3 supplications that will always be answered to. La mahala, and there's no doubt, la shak fi dhalik, no doubt about it. And one of those 3 is the madloom, the da'wah to the madloom, the dua of the oppressed person. Always. Allah will always answer the dua of the oppressed person. It was mentioned in a hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hadith al-Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنِّي حَرَّمْتُ الظُّلْمَ عَلَى نَفْسِي وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. That I have made oppression haram upon myself. That Allah will not oppress any of His servants. لَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. That Allah will not oppress any one of His servants. He said that indeed I have made oppression haram on myself, and I have made oppression haram between my servants. فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. So don't oppress one another. Don't oppress one another. And Islam came to eradicate many of the remnants of its pre-Islamic era of injustice, the injustice of Jahiliyyah, from racism and classism, and all of the other forms of isms that are indicative of oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُم شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. That indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you people, Ya ayyuhan nas, listen to the address. Allah is broadening the address, not to just concentrate on the believers, but to concentrate on mankind as a whole. He said, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, indeed I have created you all from one male and one female. One male, one female. And I've spread from that one male and female shu'uban wa qaba'ila, tribes and nations, lita'arafu, so that you may know and recognize one another. So that you may know and recognize one another, starting with yourselves. Because we seem to recognize everybody else except us. We seem to recognize everybody else except ourselves. لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may acknowledge one another. We do what is called aversive racism. We say, oh no, we're all just Muslims. I don't see color. Well, if you don't see color, then that means you don't see me. Because last time I checked, I'm colored. We're all just Muslims. Yeah, we're all just Muslims until my son wants to marry your daughter. Then he's not good enough. And some of us, unfortunately, have been so brainwashed that we feed into that more than other cultures. We feed into it more than other cultures. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so you may acknowledge one another. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The most noble of you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that has the most piety. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this religion eradicated the pre-Islamic double standards, the oppression of double standards, where one rule applies to one group of people and doesn't apply to another group of people. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. And I'll end with this hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, on the authority of Salama, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Salama, she said, "Inna Qurayshan ahammahum shatn al-Makhzumiyya." That Quraysh, meaning the Muslims that were from Quraysh, the Muslims that were from the upper classes of Meccan society, the dominant culture, who converted to Islam, they begin to become afraid because of a woman from the tribe of Makhzum who stole. Because she was from the upper echelons of Meccan society and she committed a crime, she stole. So the Sahaba were afraid, how is the Prophet going to handle this? Can't treat her like we treat Bilal. Can't treat her like we treat Miqdad ibn Aswad. Can't treat her like we treat Suhaib al-Rumi, we can't treat her like we treat some of the other Sahaba that come from the lower tiers of society. What is the Prophet ﷺ going to do? So what did they do? They chose someone that they knew the Prophet ﷺ would more likely be lenient with, and they sent Usama ibn Zayd, Hubb Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one of the youth of the Sahaba that the Prophet ﷺ was very fond of. And when Usama came to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet looked at him and he said, At-tashfa' ya Usama fi haddin min hududillah. Are you trying to intervene? Are you trying to intercede in a punishment from the punishments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You trying to stop me from cutting off her hand? He said, Waymullahi, I swear by Allah, لو فاطمة بنت محمد سرقت لقطعت يدها. He said, I swear by Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, was to steal, I would cut her hand off. Not I would order somebody to do it, I would do it myself. He leveled the entire community. It's no big eyes, little U's. This applies to us, but doesn't apply to you. And this is what goes on in our communities. And then you have to ask yourself, why have we had such very little tawfiq success from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because we don't operate on the principle of justice and equality. We operate on, that's my man, that's my girl. We do it in marriages, we marrying people to people, and we know the dude is wrong. You know he's a domestic abuser. But that's your man, and you can't say anything against him. What did Umar say? La sultan illa birijal. There can be no authority except with real men. The Prophet ﷺ disqualified some of his own companions because of domestic violence. Fatima bint Qais, she came to the Prophet ﷺ, she said, Ya Rasulullah, khatabani Muawiyah wa Abu Jahm. She said, O Messenger of Allah, Muawiyah and Abu Jahm proposed to me. Which one should I marry? The Prophet ﷺ said, Amma Muawiyah, la malala. فَصَعِلُكْ لَا مَالَ لَهُ. He said, as for Muawiyah, he's poor, he doesn't have any money, don't marry him. That's not a contradiction to the hadith of the man who didn't know anything or didn't have anything, but he memorized the Quran and the Prophet married him. He knew Muawiyah was destined for greatness, and he didn't want to subject him to that. A man who marries a woman, he has no money, she has all of the money, you setting yourself up for emotional failure. You probably won't amount to much later on in life anyway. Stop marrying people and you don't have money. You subject yourself to emotional, psychological trauma as a man. Your position is to be up front, and you can't do that without money. You can't do that without money. He said, as for Muawiyah, فَصَعِلُكْ لَا مَالَ لَهُ. He's poor, he has no money, don't marry him. He said, أَمَّا أَبُو جَهَمْ فَضَرَّابٌ لِلْنِسَاءِ. He said, as for Abu Jahm, he beats his wife, don't marry him either. Who from amongst us can do that? Your man trying to get married. Sister comes to you and says, what do you know about such and such? Oh, mashallah, he's a good brother. Mashallah, good brother. You know daggone well he's not a good brother. But we don't function with the principle of justice and fairness. Because if it was your daughter, you wouldn't do it. But because she's not your daughter, and you could care 2 cents about her, then we'll marry her to your man, who ends up another battered woman in the community. Because we don't function. It's justice when it applies to us. When it's to somebody else, this is the double standard that I'm talking about. The Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, was to steal, I would cut her hand off. He leveled the entire community, including his own family. Including his own family. We want success as a community. We want success as a ummah. Justice and fairness has to be the principle. It has to be the founding principle of our communities. And that starts with our closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The closer we are to Allah, the more that justice and fairness will manifest from amongst us. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us for all of the shortcomings that we've had in trying to operate under the conditions that we are functioning under. Some of us, it's not our fault. I understand. And my heart goes out to the brothers and sisters who have been scarred over the years, who have been chased away from these communities, chased away from Islam for many years. But guess what? Today is a new day. The fact that you guys are here right now, the fact that there are tons of people that are going to be here after Salatul Asr is an indication that we want change. We want something different. It's an indication that we want something different. And if it wasn't for the fact that I'm very careful about my image, I would shed tears in front of you right now. The moment I walked through this door and I saw you guys here, I wouldn't care if it was 10 people here. 10 people is enough to change the world. 10 people is enough. We don't need a whole large, huge crowd because 99.9% of them is not going to bust a grape in a fight. Real talk. So are we looking for the large crowds? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Ibrahim a ummah by himself. Inna Ibrahim kana ummatin. Ibrahim was a ummah. He was a community by himself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the scholars of tafsir mentioned, the reason why Allah called him a ummah was so that he does not become, upset because of the path of truth and the so many people, the few people that are on it, and the path of deviance and the large amount of people on it. We get caught up in the quantity instead of the quality. I'm concentrating on quality. Give me 10 men, and we can change our communities. We can change our condition. Give me 99 that don't have a heart in them, and we ain't going to change anything. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to change the conditions of our community. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon us the tawfiq that is necessary for us to make changes to our communities. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to change the condition so that we can bring our children who we have chased away from Islam back into our communities. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا وَقِنَا عَذَابِ النَّارِ اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة.
That was only 38 minutes.
I've since learned to keep it down to 30 minutes.